Market crash, disaster, economic deserts, interest rates going up. I mean, things, this is all happening. But nonetheless, guys, let's take a grip of ourselves, shall we? And look at what's really happening. Look at the facts, the statistics behind the headlines, because remember, those headlines are there to put fear into people to sell newspapers. Let's look at reality first, shall we? So the question is, what if the market crashes? Will the rent still be paid? Let's examine it, but first I want to briefly say hello. My name is Susannah Cole. You might be an absolute regular to my YouTube channel, in which case, lovely. I hope you absolutely enjoy binging on these fantastic videos for you, going into the playlists and just like, Suze, I have taken note after note after note, and then, message me and go, Suze, I just made 100 grand because I was following your tips. Yes! Or you might be brand new, in which case, why do I do this channel? Well, I've got £45 million worth of property experience under my belt. I own a sizable property portfolio. I'm now chilling, and this is my flat in Barcelona. I've just been swimming in the beach this morning. You can probably see from my hair. I also live in Bristol, and I am what is termed financially free, which is never perfect, by the way, because you still need to do a little bit of management of your property portfolio. So I like to share that knowledge, and I've translated it into downloadable information on my website, which is called thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk, because I love seeing other people succeed as well. Like everyone, I've got loads of flaws, but I, by and large, have quite an abundant mentality. I like seeing everybody lifted up, and I would love you to succeed. So subscribe to this channel, but also go over to my website, thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. Back to the question, which is, what if the market crashes? Will the rent be paid? Should we just take a yoga moment and just chill and look at what's actually happening? Section 24, you may or may not understand it, but basically, and I normally don't grouse about things, I'm like, dear government, thank you very much. And I try and figure out a positive way forward. But section 24, I'm gonna be quite frank, is wholly unfair. What is it, if you kind of heard it around the ether? When people like me started out, they bought all their properties in their personal name, which means all my I have about £1 million in my limited company, but most of my properties are in my personal name, which means all my mortgages are in my personal name. And I have a lot of mortgages, I have a lot of properties. I do have properties paid off, but I still have a lot of mortgages. I'm paying 5 figures a month in mortgages. I'm getting a lot more 5 figures a month in rent, but I'm paying 5 figures a month in mortgages. And George Osborne introduced section 24, which basically said, if you have properties in a limited company, your accounts are income minus costs equals profit. And if you have properties in a limited company, income, rent, minus costs, repairs, management, other things, and mortgages, and there's your profit, we'll tax you on your profit. Great. I am all down with that. I am happy to pay for schools and hospitals. You know how previously, if you had them in your personal name and you had rent income coming in, minus costs, mortgages, repairs and other, and that's your profit, we'll tax you on that. We're going to change it. We're going to disallow you, apart from a small 20% portion of it, from your mortgages being a cost. So you can do it as a limited company, which is why, of course, everyone does it in limited companies now, but not in your personal name. So, long-term landlords like me have got numerous options to convert into a limited company, to sell properties, to pay off properties if they can afford to do so, or to be taxed entirely, and I'm going to be quite blunt here, unfairly, because income minus costs gives you your profit, you're taxed on that. Now it's income minus a small amount of costs, and we're going to tax you on additional costs. So it's costing a lot more money, and some landlords have gone from profit making to loss making. There you go, a bit of a comprehensive description. So what do the landlords do? They leave, they sell their properties. They might transfer over to limited liability company, but that's only the portfolio people like me. Somebody that's got 1 or 2 properties, they get their tax return at the end of the year and they say, well, what is the point of me paying the government more tax than I actually earn? There's no point to this anymore. So they sell up. So landlords are leaving the industry in droves. So the provision of properties is decreasing, plus coupled with Airbnb, where landlords are still allowed to, by the way, in their personal name, use their mortgage for their Airbnb as a cost. So another option for somebody like me is to say, well, I'm not going to have it in my, as a single let, where I'm providing somebody that's lived there for years a home, like I want to, and you would like me to as well. I can't afford to, or not me, but a person can't afford to. So I'll just turn it into a holiday let because I can use that more. It's wholly unfair. Shan't rant. But it means that they're either selling up or they are going into service accommodation, Airbnb. So the provision of houses is reduced, so rents have gone up, because the third way landlords are saying it as well, I can't make a loss, so I've got to put my rent up. And we're seeing rents going up enormously, and it's entirely because of what See? You don't hear me ranting very often, but this one is really unfair. And it is really unfair. So there's not enough housing because landlords are altering the way they work in the private rental sector, or they're leaving the sector. Secondly, there hasn't been enough housing for years. Government has stopped investing in housing so long ago. It's just a heinous crime, in my opinion, as a society. However, there you are. So we already live in an island and there are too few houses, and now the houses run by landlords are being kind of attacked financially, so they can't do it anymore. So they're going to leave. So we're in a real limited supply, massive demand, prices go up. So will the rent be paid? Well, the rent will get higher, and you're going to have the pick of quality tenants because your competitor landlords have left the marketplace because of these unfair tax rules. So chances are you're going to find amazing tenants who'll pay the rent. The second part of the macro picture is things like Ukraine, things like the gas. I mean, if you're watching this in 2 years' time, that will be, I hope, very much for the people of Ukraine over. But there's additional kind of macro, large economic impacts on whether people can pay rents. Of course there are. So I just talked macro, didn't I? I talked broad picture, but actually the macro doesn't pay your rent, the kind of broad economic circumstances. What pays your rent is how you behave as a landlord. I have had thousands of tenants. I have had 2 tenants not pay me. Both of those tenants have been taken to court by me or my team. Both of them have got CCJs, so they will have credit impairment for the next 7 years. One of them then had an order which they fulfilled 50% of paying me per month. Yeah. I didn't get all the rent back on them, but they've both got CCJs, so that was a really dumb move on their part. So the microeconomic circumstances, which is kind of how you function, is really whether the rent's going to be paid or not. Here's my process. I'm black and white about it, because you wouldn't go into a supermarket and steal food and then be like, but I need this food. So a tenant can't come to me and go, but I need to live in this house, and whoop, I'm not going to pay you. Sorry, we got a contract. If you don't want to live in this house, don't live in this house. But don't live in this house and not pay me. That ain't going to wash, honeybee. So what happens with me is the tenant may elect not to pay, because it is always a decision not to pay, because they're deciding where to put their money, where not to put their money, or where to try and put their overdraft and make you bear the cost of their overdraft, or their whatever. Maybe they've lost their job and they haven't yet got another job. You can help them by sending them loads of job links. We did that in COVID, by the way. So we're not heartless, but we are very much like, you need to pay this rent because you've got a contract. I need to pay the mortgage. I've got a contract. So in order to pay the rent, you're going to probably need a job. We recognise you're probably struggling in COVID. We used to send our tenants so many links for jobs, not individual jobs, but like massive job boards. We can help them out. But what I'm not going to do is go, oh, honey, come here. Mama Suze is just going to allow you not to pay your rent. No, we've got a contract. We're both adults. So 3 days in, they get first little legal letter saying, letter before legal action, you need to pay your rent. It's a template. Just put their name and the money owed in. 6 days after they haven't paid their rent, second letter. 9 days after they paid the rent, third letter. Day 10, application to small claims court to get the rent. Because of my micro behaviour, or my team's micro behaviour, I've only had 2 tenants stiff me for rent, ever, and both of them have CCJs. Because we followed through in the court process. What happens is, when they say I'm not going to pay the rent, or I can't pay the rent, or they just go silent, you just write to them and say, look, this is our process. Can you explain why the rent can't be paid? Oh, I've lost my job. Okay, hammer out, give them 30 links to job boards, 30 links to job companies, yeah? So you're helping them, but this is our process, and funnily enough, your micro behaviour means that the rent will be paid. So don't make the mistake of being your tenant's bank. You're not their bank. You're not their parents. Don't make the mistake of not having processes. I have clear, simple processes, and it's the processes that make people go, all right, I better not then. Don't make the mistake of getting emotionally involved. Yeah? It's like, okay, you haven't paid your rent, this is the process. And don't make the mistake of letting the macro, the big environment, change your micro behaviour. We're in a recession. The rent gets paid. But the one thing I do sometimes with the tenants is, if it's something tragic, we once had somebody, it was really sad, their brother had died, and they came from Eastern Europe. You know, it was tragic. And they were like, I can't pay the rent because, and this family situation's happened. So that, at that point, you have a conversation and you work something out. And they paid their rent, by the way, but we worked it out. The other situation is when they're like, I can't pay my rent. And you go, why not? Not why not in a judgmental way, but just genuinely, why not? And then they're like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, would it be, no, you have to give us a month's notice. So you're legally obligated to pay this month's rent. And if you don't, we'll do a county court judgment against you. You know, that's non-negotiable. That's just a process thing, a debt management process thing. But would it be easier for you, not pushing them out in any shape or form? We would be comfortable should you find alternative place to go, or maybe you're going back in with family. Like my son's moved back in with me at the moment, you know, boomerang generation. Would it ease your financial situation if we allowed you to get out of this contract earlier? Obviously we need it in writing, we need it properly legally agreed. We're not pushing you out at all, but actually under your current personal circumstances where you want to move back in with mum and dad, would that be easier for you? So I don't sit there and go, you have to stay for a month and you have to pay me, because I know my properties are really desirable. It's slightly irritating my end because contractually they have to give you a month, but it's an awful lot better to not have to chase somebody where they're happier going back into the bosom of mum and dad. So occasionally we'll be a bit flexible that way when I know that we'll be able to get that property rented out straight away. So we will have those conversations with tenants, but at no point do we ever push them out in any shape or form. So it's all about your behaviour in a recession. People thrive in recessions, you know. Great companies are built in recessions. Why? Because there's no extra juice or fat. So you have to be very lean, you have to have great processes. So if you can build your property business in a recession, you're going to be like boosting it when the world comes clean again. So I wish you good luck. Remember, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, but also remember my website. I've done so much work to make it a great place for you to be able to download all of the property education you need, all in different subject matters like deal sourcing, like flipping. Go and have a real good explore. It's called thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk, and I wish you good luck. Actually, I'm going to be honest, I feel slightly uncomfortable telling you the stuff just because there's so much crap in the media about landlords, but I'm an absolutely fair landlord. If I would never take a penny from a tenant's deposit unless it was completely justified. But they've got to pay their rent because they signed the contract and they're enjoying the services. So that's how far our culture has misrepresented landlord, that a good quality landlord like me is feeling uncomfortable telling you that you need to make sure your tenants pay you the rent, which is what's contractually agreed. That's weird. Nothing wrong with that, is there? But even I'm uncomfortable saying it. That's wrong that the debate has shifted so far. Let's get back into being decent human beings who honour what we agree and sign, shall we? Good luck. Good luck to you. I hope you enjoyed that vid. There is a 101 lessons pack if you haven't downloaded it already, 102 pages, I don't stint. If you just click on the link over there, you can download it now.